He was such a nice man. There was not a nicer man. He never argued with me. Apart from once, I did something in all the contracts. I hate not knowing what's going on. At the end of the day, we just fry eggs. But if you don't lead by example, then you can forget it. It will not happen. I quite like conflict. I do. I love a bit of conflict.
You would never know, Wendy.
If you don't challenge, you'll just end up as you are now.
Welcome to the Lunch at Work podcast, where we talk to experts about how to make workplaces better. Wendy Bartlett,
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us on the last episode for 2024 of the Lunch at Work podcast.
A great initiative. Well done, Michaela.
We're going to just have a little conversation about all of the ins and outs and ups and downs of the last 25 years.
A long time.
A long, long time of BM Caterers, Bartlett Mitchell. You are obviously now a hugely successful female entrepreneur, but where did it start? What were the initial hospitality days of Wendy Bartlett?
Well, I came into this industry because of my sister, Janice. She worked in the industry. And funny enough, I had a picture taken at the weekend at a friend's party. I swear she was standing there. I look exactly like my sister. And that was how I got into the industry. I then worked in contract catering because actually it's a really great industry for women to be in catering because it's Monday to Friday. I think it's much more structured. I don't think it's so hierarchical. So it's a much better industry to be in, or if you're going to be in hospitality. And I then met Ian Mitchell on the British Airways account, which funny enough, WSH still have that account to this day. And I think we just got to the point where we are both caterers. We are not entrepreneurs. We actually are just really good caterers. And therefore, what happened was we were talking about the fact that as you go up the hierarchy within organisations, it becomes more about the money, more about the company's needs. And we really just care about food and people. And that was all we were interested in. Everything else bored us immensely. We were so not engaged in that part of the world. And so we thought, actually, let's start a company. And the conversation goes like this. I think we should start a company, Ian, because I really don't want to be doing this for 20 years. Oh, great idea, Wendy. Let's do that. That was the length of our conversation and organisation of starting BM.
That sounds exactly like the conversation that you two would have.
Exactly. That was it. Shall we do food and people for the rest of our lives, or shall we do fine? Oh, let's stick with food and people. Much more fun. And if you get it right, the rest will come, as it did.
Yeah, and it's been a really great 25 years.
Yes, it has.
Obviously, really sadly, Ian has passed on earlier on this year. What kind of legacy did Ian leave behind, and what kind of lessons could we learn from him?
I think Ian was probably epitomised the greatest of hospitality. He was such a nice man. There was not a nicer man. I never fell out with him once. He never argued with me. Apart from once, I did something in all the contracts and organised something. And he was like, we're not mandating this. And then never did that again. So I think the legacy from Ian is that we're a real people company. And he was very caring. And anything I do think about, would Ian do that? So even though he climbed within the hierarchy of larger organisation, he was just still genuinely interested in people. And he was always prepared to take the time to talk to them. And he was always prepared to... He wasn't someone who'd always go and talk to the top person in a room. He'd always go and talk to somebody like the kitchen porter or the general assistant, because he knew they were as important as everybody. Well, actually more important. So therefore, he was just a nice, caring, great man for hospitality, and a great chef too.
What did he cook?
He could cook anything. And what I do remember is that one of the things he used to do, which used to drive his partner mad, was a stock, and he'd have it going for like 48 hours in the kitchen, and it would go to, what we call a jus, and he loved making his jus, and then he absolutely loved that. So he loved a carving knife as well with a big bit of steak. So yeah, he was a really good chef. Yeah.
Nice.
And in fact, he used to go out when we first started, coming from an MD of a multi-million-pound company, to cooking the breakfast when the chef didn't turn up in our first years of working. And he always used to do Christmas lunch so that the team could have the day off. He was such a nice man.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
I think that he's definitely instilled that lesson in me about greeting everybody, because
Yes.
that's something that I do now. Whenever I go to a site, I make sure that I go and greet everybody in the kitchen and everybody at the front of the house, and hospitality if I can.
Yeah. Yeah. He always thought that was important, that everyone had equal value and you should treat them with respect. The thing for Ian, most important, was that people loved working and enjoyed the people that they worked with, and that you treated everyone with respect and gave them the time that was needed. That was really important to him. And that's what he didn't like about the larger organisation. When you get very large, you're so far away from the people that are doing the groundwork. He liked to make sure that he kept on that level.
What are some of the really big things that you've learned over the last 25 years?
Some of the big things I've learned. Well, first of all, that you do have to stick to your values and what you believe in. So I'm not probably the easiest person, hence why I had to have lovely Ian versus me. But you have to stick to what you believe in. I think also I quite like conflict. I think conflict's really good because it makes people stretch themselves. It makes you more honest. So the honest and open is very important to me in Bartlett Mitchell and to Ian. It was about that everybody could talk to everybody equally, which I think in BM we're quite a flat structure. People are not worried about calling me or speaking to me and mentioning something if I'm on site. So I think being open and honest, communication, I'm mad about Yapster and Yammer. I hate not knowing what's going on. I'm not the big things, it's about the small things, because when I go to site, I'd like to know what is going on so I can have a conversation with them. Because if they don't think I think it's important, then why would it be important to them? And I've just actually come from a site that we've taken over from a competitor, and we were discussing why it had gone so wrong for the competitor. They'd had it for a long time. And it really was what the client said. It reflects what happens from the top down. So if I'm not interested that a place is clean, the health and safety is done, the food looks presentable, it's fresh, all those very basic things. At the end of the day, we just fry eggs. That's our job. We're just caterers producing great food. Now, it could be fine dining or it could be just an egg sandwich in the morning. Had a great one last week in one of our contracts, actually. And so you can have that wide breadth of catering needs, but that is what we're about. So I need to care about that. I need to understand that. So I think the biggest thing for me, I'm a good communicator, I believe. Therefore, I would definitely say communication is the biggest thing, is important. What you have to understand that is not everybody's strengths and not everybody is the same as you. So you must understand their perspectives and try to work around that. But if you don't lead by example, then you can forget it. It will not happen. And why should it? Why should your team do anything you're not prepared to do or something you don't believe in? You can't tell them to smile. You have to get them to want to smile because you're making them happy and you're smiling.
I know that you like to know everything that's going on in the estates. How do you keep those plates spinning?
When we started the company, when we got to about 10 million, and I was trying to think how I was going to make it all work, because it is like what I describe catering is that you've got plates spinning and some wobble, some will spin quite happily for a while. You've got to know where to go. And so in order to know where to go, you've got to have data. So we produce a lot of data. So what we're not worried about is this is all going really well. I need to know what are the things that are going wrong. That's not because I want to pick up on them and be a negative person, but it is that bit that I need to know about in order then to fix it. And also to look forward. So data is really important. And also working out how you can find out the most important things. And the most important things are also not always the biggest thing. They could just be a sense or a feeling that something is not going the right way, or that maybe the client was looking for something that we weren't being able to deal with. That comes from having everybody contribute, because what you think is important in a site may be different to what someone else thinks important. So you've got to have lots of comments and views and questions and conflict regarding all of that to come up with the best solution. Otherwise, what happens, and it was a classic from the site I went today, people just ignore it, just let it carry on, never judge it, never challenge it, never question it, and then it just goes on a decline. You've got to question things all the time.
So, like you said earlier, the higher you go up, you kind of have to you have to understand what's going wrong and kind of let the what's going right just do its thing. You've got to know what's going wrong.
Yeah, you have to know where those little edges are, because they're the things, and it's our responsibility within BM as the hierarchy of the people there to support the units, is to make sure that we know what's going wrong and how we're going to fix it, because we must look after our team first and foremost. We look after our team, they will look after our clients. So that's the most important thing, is you've got to have a lot of perspectives, a lot of data, a sharing, a good communication. I can't bear cliques of departments where people don't know what the other people... So it's important for you to know about what's going on, as it is important for the ops person. So ops can't run without marketing. They can't run without finance. Everybody is one team. We're not individual departments. So that's really important to me. And that's why I think communication is a big strength.
But what about when it's kind of just in the middle? What about that innovation piece? How do you think people can be innovative within contract catering? What kind of things do they need to think of? What kind of things do they need to be doing?
Some people, one of the things you need to do when you start a company is you have to understand that everybody is different at different things. And I'm not great at finance, not interested in it at all. If we hadn't made a penny, apart from paying my mortgage, that was all I was worried about. So for me, my priority wasn't that. So I got someone who is good at finance, because I knew that was my biggest weakness. Then if you've got innovation, you've got to have people around who are prepared to do conflict, challenge, question, always, looking out for things. And we've got a lot of people within BM that are prepared to put those ideas forward and also prepared to challenge. And then you've got those that aren't, that are quite happy to just do the data bashing or the look at the level ground. And so you've got to have that nice balance. So when we do our understanding of what we've got within a team, you have to employ people that are better than you. Luckily, we do. I employ a lot of people better than me, thank God. So therefore, you've got to have all those people in order to create that idea of creativity. The other thing is, I think with creativity, is that you must allow people to challenge. And I like the fact that people challenge what we do. You've got to challenge all the time. If you don't challenge, you'll just end up as you are now. So I think you've got to create an environment where you come up with bizarre ideas. And I post them on Yapster. So if I'm posting ideas of odd things or saying, why don't we try this? Why don't we do that? Let's look at there. Then other people wouldn't be thinking, oh, that's okay. I can do that as well. So you've got to lead by example in innovation.
You say that you really love conflict.
I do. I love a bit of conflict.
You would never know, Wendy. What have been some of the really difficult things over the last 25 years? What have been some of the really tough things where you've maybe, gotten in that conflict and it's not come over, or what's just been really tough?
I think the toughest bit is, as you grow, is knowing how to manage it. The other thing that is really difficult is to know that the decisions you made today will have massive impacts in the future. So you've really got to think, if I make this decision today, what will happen? And sometimes not making a decision will cause as much conflict as making a decision. So you have to understand that if the longer you procrastinate about it, that's not going to make it any better. So you need to make decisions, even if it's the wrong decision, that's fine. Even if you make mistakes, absolutely fine. But it's not learning from your mistakes is the issue. And so having the right type of people that you want to work with is really important. Sometimes you can have someone that's great and you think, oh, they're really great, but they cause conflict within an organisation. And even though they might be fantastic, that's the wrong person. And so I've had to deal with that at quite a senior level where, it was good for us when we were a smaller company, but as we grew larger, you needed to do something else because that person wasn't right for that different type of business. And company will change. Life will change. You cannot expect it to be the same. The point about change is making it better. So I think that's really important to understand that. And if a client wasn't right for us, we had a very large client. It was over £1 million turnover. He was a bully. It was an awful client. We actually gave him notice because I wasn't prepared to let the team work with someone like that. So you've got to make your decisions based on what you think, well, I can sleep with that in 5 years' time. Would I feel good about that? And I still think that was the right decision Ian and I made.
What happened to the team members?
They all still work with us now. actually. Yeah, they do. Nearly all of them still work with us now. We took them from the contract and they still work with us. So.
You have supported a lot of different organizations.
Well, the main ones were UK Hospitality and supporting with the Food Circle during the lockdown when we were trying to do more in communication and helping people to believe there was hope at the end of all of this, because I know it was quite a dark time for everybody. And the big one that I'm involved in is the Little Troopers. So that's where a friend of mine, husband is in the army, and she struggled with a daughter in these times with all the news and the press, and it supports serving soldiers, male and female, but it mainly supports the offspring in being able to deal with that very, very stressful situation. So that's probably the one that I deal with the most.
Why is it important to help people that are not you?
I think there's two things. One, you help people where it's gratifying to help and there is reward. And Louise, who runs that organisation, is phenomenal. She runs it all by herself with some, assistants from part-timers, but she really does. If you're going to support, you want someone to take that support and make it work. And she does. So I'm really happy to support her. And BM has supported her for many years. In UK Hospitality, I think I probably did it for 10 years. That was more, and it was longer than it should have been because we were in that COVID situation. And that was really lovely to support and try to bring everyone together to have a solution and really help the industry go forward. Because it is a fantastic industry. We've done, if you think of all the people that work within our industry, you can come in at any level and then you can really contribute to other people's lives in making a difference. And also in your own life, if you put the effort in and you take the chances and you make a difference in your job, you can actually succeed. As we've seen in BM number of times by people. Gary, who literally this week wrote and said, he passed his NVQs to become it's so lovely to see that, because you can see that people who don't know what they're going to do in life, suddenly he's a successful chef that's admired by the whole of BM. And it's lovely that we're such a nice family in that our Yapster, it's not just at that site or that little operational team are sharing Gary's success. We're sharing it in a much wider way with everyone in BM thinking, oh, well, that's a great thing that happened.
Yeah, and I suppose that leads on to the next question I want to ask you, because every year, Wendy, in my postbox on the 5th of May, I get a birthday card out on BM and it says, happy birthday from Wendy.
Yeah, and I do sit inside them.
Why? You hand sign all the birthday cards. You are constantly at sites taking selfies with everybody who wants to get in there.
So if they don't have Yapster pictures, that's...
Why do you do that? Why are you so people-centric?
For me, it's all about your values. And Ian and I were both the same. We were very aligned on that. If it's your birthday, then we like to celebrate. I am not going to send you a printed card. I'm really adamant about that. I will take the time to write my name, and Ian obviously is quite a sad sign in the cards without Ian now. But I think, I say you're important. Your people are your most important asset, but you can't take the time to hand sign a card to them. They're not important to you because you're not taking that time. That's why we make the effort of sending a welcome card, which I do sign. And that's not signing just because it's me. That's signing saying, actually, BM really care enough about you. We're not just saying you're important. We believe you're really important to us, and therefore we're prepared to take the time to share that with you. Birthdays are lovely things to celebrate. I love celebrating a party and having a birthday. So if you're going to do that, it's nice to do it in a genuine way rather than a tick box way.
You said earlier about growing your business and knowing how to grow your business. What are some of the key points on that? Because there's lots of hospitality businesses out there, whether they're contract catering businesses or restaurants or whatever it may be. What is then the key to taking it from, where you can just pay your mortgage and everything's lovely? What's the key to taking that to the next step?
I don't think Ian and I ever had a plan to grow. Genuinely, we never had an exit plan. We were rubbish at that. I think the only thing we want to do, and the only reason we have grown, is because we wanted to grow to give people opportunities. People like working for us. As you know, look, we have really good turnover. There's lots of people who've been with us a long time, and therefore, as you grow, you take more people on. They want opportunities. Therefore, you have to grow. Ian quite used to say, "Oh, do we have to have any more contracts?" Because he liked it, so he knew everyone and he could go round. And it's quite stressful to. You have to sell all the time and thinking about selling, how you're going to get your next job. But we are responsible for people's jobs, their livelihoods, the ability to pay their mortgages, and for them to have successful, great lives. Therefore, in order for them to do that, we have to grow in order that we can do that for them. Because had we stayed small, what would have happened is that they would have left us and maybe gone to jobs that weren't so nice. And actually, I was with someone today. She's been with us 21 years, and she was from a contract. And after 21 years, it happens. The client changed and wanted someone they had before, and she stayed. And she said to me, literally at lunchtime, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry I left, Wendy, but I wanted to stay because I'd been there so long." She said, "But I really regretted it. And that's why I've come back, because actually you do care and you do look after us and you are interested in us." So I think that's quite important, that they understand that they're not just workers. They are part of a bigger entity that cares about them. And if you can show someone you care, that's a nice thing to give to someone's life, to make them feel that they're valued. So that was important to us.
Wendy, what are your 3 pieces of advice for people who are looking to start a business in hospitality?
Funny enough, I was speaking to someone at the weekend about about starting a business, and I said to him, if I've learned anything from starting a business, there's a couple of things. First of all, especially in hospitality, you should work in contract catering so you understand all about all that great training to do with health and safety, cost control, allergens, all the processes we have in place, which are boring, I know, and I feel sorry for our team that it's so onerous, but you have to have good basic principles, and you have to get that right going off on the first day so that everyone is doing everything right the first time, and then that will save you a lot of time. So make sure you get your processes in place. The second thing you need to do is make sure you're clear about what your values are and what you stand for. A bit like our fundamentals. I don't like cling film on the front. I hate silk flowers. So I wrote all those things down that I think are unacceptable, because I can't expect someone at a site to know what I'm thinking unless I tell them. So I do. I say, these are things that I think indicate poor caterers. So we have our fundamentals to make sure that we don't do that. So be very clear about what your values are, because if you're not clear about your values, your team won't be clear. And the other thing is, you absolutely must make sure you live those values, because if you don't live those values, then why should your team live that? And I think that's the biggest part of running a business, is being clear what you're and sticking to it, so that your team may not like you, may not like the values, but they're very clear about what's expected from them. And once you know what's expected, it's easier to know how to deliver that on that basis.
We've obviously spoken a little bit about the past, and we have come from the last 25 years, but what about the next 25 years of BM? Where is it going?
Well, I'm hoping that it has a legacy. It will change. I mean, the biggest surprise to us was it actually worked, and that we did. Not because BM isn't great, and not because we don't have fantastic people. Ian and I didn't necessarily know what we were doing. Hands up, we're honest, we didn't know what we're doing. We just knew how to be great caterers. And now we've got people who do know what they're doing. We've got a much more professional outfit than we had when we started out. So the opportunities are greater. I think there's a real market for BM of the future, because we are unique enough that we've got quite a good backing. The organisation, our umbrella organisation, literally never interferes with us. I was just talking to a client today that's had us for about 10 years. I said, "Have you noticed a change in the last 4 years?" She said, "Absolutely not." She said, "I still see you. I see the same team. The food's still great. It's still proactive and positive." So we've been able to get through that changeover. So the next 25 years will be about growth. My job within the organisation, which won't change till someone makes me redundant or is brave enough, that they will, is to keep it on the BM culture. And as long as we keep that culture, it will adapt, it will change. There will be different bosses. We'll have new people coming in. That's all great, but it shows that it has the ability to grow slowly and steadily, not skyrocketing, not deviating from where it needs to be, but being like the relais chateau of the contract catering world, where we're able to go upwards, but dive off wherever we need to adapt to whatever those client needs are. And we're quite good at dealing with challenging clients who want a specific individual attention. I think all of us are very wired to give that to our clients. So I believe that it's got a strong future in carving out its own niche in that way.
Yeah, I think we've all pretty much got that attitude of, okay, we don't do that right now.
Yeah.
But how can we do it?
Yeah.
What can we do?
Always try. That's about conflict. That's about challenge. That's about change.
Yeah.
And also that is about all of us being one team and all having a common interest. You're not interested just in your department, you're interested in the wider. And that only comes from shared communication and from leaders that believe things should be challenged, that we should always be looking for the next thing.
So to end off then, what piece of advice would you give to somebody who is kind of just starting in their hospitality career or climbing the ranks, who's looking to kind of take that next step, ready to go? What advice would you give to that person?
I would say there's a couple of things. First of all, you take responsibility for what you want to do and also be open and honest and say, that's where I want to be. Be very clear about where you want. Make sure that you've got a bit of a plan about how am I going to do it. Don't burn your bridges on the way up because all of us come down. So you never know who you're going to be with. I did do something recently on a blog about networking. Don't always go to people because you're going to want something from them, but always try to be helpful and network and have as wide a network as you can, but also make sure that network, if you draw a circle of you and then you'll see how everybody is connected. Sometimes you've got to go out of that connection because you want to widen it. It is about who you know, not necessarily what you know, because that's where the opportunities to learn or have new roles come from. So I think that's really important for people to come on and to be clear about what you want from the business too, about I want to be trained on this. How can I do that? And put that extra effort in. What I love about BM is that there are people out there that we've had as general assistants, baristas, chefs, who have really changed and personality-wise what they've added to the business, or they gain new careers or gone off into different areas because we've given them the opportunity, but there are loads of opportunities out there. You've got to be able to take it and then find your mentoring support around you to help you deliver it. So I think that's been really nice for people to learn that is achievable. Not just within BM, and also sometimes you do have to spread your rings. We get that, but they always come back. So I really like that.
Yes, definitely. I think one person that particularly stands out for me when you talk about, ask for what you want and put your hand up.
Yes,
is Murray, who's just won a Katie.
Yes, he has, and his team. Yeah, and actually, if you look at that team, you have Murray, who's our
he's our head of people now. He started as a butler.
He was our butler. Actually, even pre-BM being that contract, that was my contract before and Ian's contract when we worked for another company. And so Murray's done exceptionally well. He's had a number of roles with us over the number of years. You've got Cassia, who used to work in one of our contracts, I think, as a barista or a general assistant, who now does all our HR admin. You've got Dory, who used to be a catering manager. We took over from the incumbent caterer and she worked for them and she transferred to her. And now she's our head of training. And then you've got Agatha, who also came to work with us as, I think, an assistant manager or something. And now she's head of recruitment. So that whole department is full of people that have grown with BM. And that's why we have to grow, because it gives those people opportunities. Actually, I probably think one of the nicest things that's happened to me recently is that a manager left. It was probably a couple of months ago, and then she wrote a note to Murray and I, because we'd been helping with something, and she said, and she wasn't the most BM ambassador in that she was great at her job, she ran it, she knew what she was doing, and so she wasn't so as immersed in the BM world. However, when she left, and of all the people I'm surprised that has said it, she was one of them. When she left, she said, "You don't know what you have till you left, and can I thank you?" I like all those little things probably more than the big things, you know. I like it when people come, like the lady today came and said, you know, thank you, and it's a nice company to work for. And that's why we started the company, and that would have made Ian very proud. He would have been very proud on Friday night.
Well, Wendy, I have learned so much from you today, and I always learn so much from our conversation, so I'm hugely appreciated. I'll be one of those people today who says thank you very much for everything you've done for me as well. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, and
thank you for this great initiative in starting your podcast. That's the difference. You asked and you did. That's what I love. So well done. Thank you.
This podcast is powered by BM Caterers. Contacting BM is the easiest way to start your journey to a better workplace experience. Click the link in the description for more info.